Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Robert Romano, and welcome to the first week of business law here at LIM College. This week, I want you to review Chapter 1, read Chapter 1, familiarize yourself with the different terms, with the different terminologies within the chapter, and at the end of the week, I need you to submit online a brief bio on what your course expectations are. Okay, that should be around a page and a half, no more than a page and a half. All right, and that's your assignment for this week. Let me go over Chapter 1 with you now. What is law? I want you to think about that. What is law? Where do we get our laws from? What is law? How do laws come about? Why do we have laws? Do we need laws? I want you to take a moment and think about what law is. Okay? But basically, the definition within the book is law is a body of rules of action or conduct prescribed by a controlling authority, usually the government, that have a binding legal force. If they do not have a binding legal force, then they're useless. There's no reason for them, and therefore they are not law. Additionally, law must be obeyed and followed by the citizens subject to sanctions or legal consequences. All right, law is that which must be obeyed and or followed by the citizens of that country, state, county, whatever, or else they'll be subject to sanctions and or other legal consequences. So if I ask you on the first quiz, please define law. You can say it's a body of rules of action or conduct prescribed by controlling authority, usually a government, that have binding legal force. The citizenship must obey and follow these rules, or they'll be subject to sanctions or legal consequences. Okay? What's the function of law? What is the reason we put laws into place? Take a moment, think about that. Well, what's the function of the law? Number one, keep the peace. All right? If we didn't have laws, there'd be anarchy. Criminals would reign. We need laws to keep peace. Maybe not so much down in Baltimore, but we'll do what we got to do. They also shape our morals. Right? It's illegal for anyone under the age of 21 to drink alcoholic beverages. Right? They kind of shape the way our morals of this country. We ban illegal drugs except for medical purposes. So the function of law: keeping peace, shape our morals, social justice, keep everyone on the same playing field. No, we don't want anybody being discriminated against for whatever reason. If not, function of law is to keep the status quo. Right? I mean, we'd be overthrowing our government. If there weren't laws, it'd be anarchy. We need to facilitate order through laws. Additionally, the function of law is to facilitate planning. Right? The city of New York, if everybody just wanted to put up buildings wherever they wanted to, that would be chaos. So we have zoning laws in place to say, we're going to build certain kind of buildings here, certain buildings here, we need a park here, we need two baseball fields over here, that kind of thing. So one of the functions is to facilitate planning. It's a basis for compromise. You got to understand that over 90% of the cases that are brought to court settled before they ever go to trial. They maximize our freedoms. As individuals, we have certain freedoms. Under the Bill of Rights, under the Constitution, we, the citizenship, are given certain inalienable rights, certain freedoms, such as religion and freedom of speech, therefore freedom of the press, freedom to be against reasonable search and seizure, and these are all given to us within the Constitution. But you understand that the laws is always evolving. Laws today may not work 10 years from now. 20 years ago, my cell phones over there weren't the norm. But so now laws had to be put in place. So to handle how we evolve through society, how we evolve as a nation, how we evolve as a human race. Okay? Sources of law. We get our law in the United States from 4 various sources. Maybe 6. 4 is definitely four solid ones, and then two peripherally. All right, sources of law, common law. All right, I get posted for your reading assignment the difference between common law and civil law. I want you to read that. You know that there's a difference in these two types of law. We in the United States, for the most part, follow the common law, except for Louisiana. Louisiana follows civil law. Most of Europe, except for England, follows civil law. All right, we get a second source of laws from the Constitution. All right, there are 51 constitutions in the United States. Each individual state has their own constitution and the U.S. Constitution. So there's 51. All right, we get our laws from source of laws from statutory law. All right, these are laws enacted by the legislature. And the fourth source of law is administrative. The fifth is executive orders. And the sixth are source of laws from treaties. The first four are the major ones, the second two more peripherally, but we get our laws from 6 various areas here in the United States. Now we're going to go over each one of those in more detail. The common law. All right, the common law is a system of law derived from centuries of general rules, customs, and experiences. All right, so if I ask you on a quiz, what is common law? It's a system of law derived from centuries of general rules, customs, and experiences. It's derived from the Old English law. All right, over a period of time, through the general rules, what was going on, they set up a series of laws. This is the way we want to do things in our country. All right, it's judicial decisions. They're rules based on decisions of actual legal disputes. Okay, so as a lawyer, if I want to know what the law is, I have to go to the books. I have books all around me. And look to see what the law is. In this form, under this fact pattern, I need to look how previous judges decided this issue. And based on that decision, I can advise my client properly. Okay? So common law is a system of law derived from centuries of rules, customs, and experiences. And these rules are put into opinions. And as a lawyer, you look at these opinions, you look at these judicial decisions, and you can derive what the law is based on your set of facts. All right. Common law is decisions of numerous courts over hundreds of years. Right? These all combine to form what we know as common law. All right. Common law is based on the concept of precedent. All right. Precedent meaning once a case has been decided at a higher court, either the Supreme Court or the appellate court, all future analysis by lower courts in that jurisdiction must rely on that prior decision. Okay? So if I bring a case in the lower court and the district court, I need to look at what the cases are that have previously ruled in this area on this issue from the Supreme and the appellate court. Okay, so I know what the law is. Common law, the term is stare decisis, means stand by the decision. All right, common law, stare decisis, means stands by the decision. That's the practice of courts following case precedent, prior case law decisions in rendering their opinions. It's looking back at what the law is and then determining what the law is now. Okay? Got it. All right, so that's first source of law. Second source of law is constitutional law. All right? The United States Constitution came into play in 1787. With 4 years later, the Bill of Rights was attached to the Constitution. And these Bill of Rights are yours. All right? You as the people of the United States, these are your rights. All right? Together, these two documents, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, are known as the supreme law of the land. All right? They are the supreme law of the land. Bill of Rights came into play 4 years later because the people, us, the people of the United States, expressed fear that the federal government would abuse its powers. All right, we didn't want the federal government abusing its powers. Therefore, the Bill of Rights limits the powers and authority of the federal government and guarantees civil rights and protections to you, the populace. Okay? Remember that, because that's very important, and that'll definitely be on the quiz. The Bill of Rights limits the powers and authority of the federal government and guarantees civil rights and protections to you. Right? The Bill of Rights doesn't limit your powers at all. It limits the government's powers. All right. Bill of Rights. Think about it. What are some of your basic rights given to you? Take a moment. Think. This will definitely be on the quiz. You know, some of your rights are freedom of religion, the right to practice any religion you choose, freedom of the press, freedom of speech, right? The right to keep and bear arms. That's Amendment number 2. Protection from quartering troops. It's kind of outdated now, but that's an old adage back when our country came into play. The British were known for forcing the American people to house their troops. Give them a room, give them food, give them whatever they needed. So it's part of our Constitution. We are protected. The Army can't come into your town and say, "Hey, you got to let these 3 sergeants sleep at your place." All right, that can't happen anymore. You are protected from unreasonable search and seizure. We'll get into that in more detail. It's one of my favorite amendments. Due process, right? You have a right to due process, double jeopardy, self-incrimination, and eminent domain. What that means is you have a right to due process. You have a right to be heard in court. You have a right to go in front of a judge or a magistrate to state your case. Right? The government just can't prosecute you without a process. Okay? Double jeopardy. You can't be tried for the same case twice. Once the jury comes back and you are acquitted, you cannot be charged again for that same crime. The O.J. case, right? O.J. Simpson allegedly killed his wife and her boyfriend. He was found innocent. He was therefore he can never be tried again, even if new evidence should come about. Even if now there's a video showing he did it, doesn't matter. He was tried. He was found innocent. Double jeopardy says you cannot be tried again. All right, you have a right against self-incrimination. Right? You have a right not to say anything. All right, if police ask you a question, you have a right to say, "I'm not answering your questions." Right? You have a right against self-incrimination. Some of your other rights: right to a speedy trial, right to counsel, the confrontation clause, which means you have a right to cross-examine your witnesses or ask questions of your witnesses, especially those who are testifying against you. You have a right to a trial by jury. You have a right against excessive bail and cruel and unusual punishment. And those are some of your basic rights given to you under the Constitution of the United States. Constitutional law. All right. Just also know, under the Constitution, it guarantees the 3-branch system of our government. All right, we know we have 3 branches of our government. The legislature, which is Congress, and their role is to enact laws. They have the power to make and the power to enact laws. The second branch of our government is the executive branch, the president, the governor. Their job is to enforce the laws. Congress enacts. Executive is to enforce the laws. And they do that because they are the commander-in-chief of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, so they can enforce it because they have a lot of people backing them up. And the third branch of our government is the judicial branch, the courts. Their power is to interpret and determine the validity of the law. And this was all carved out in our Constitution. We have 3 branches: legislature, executive, judicial. Legislature enact laws, executive enforce, judicial interpret. Okay, and that may be on the quiz. Each state has their own constitution, like I said, so there are 51 constitutions in the United States, 1 U.S. Constitution. Each state has their own. But the state constitutions cannot take away any of your federal constitutional rights. They can give you more rights than the U.S. Constitution, but they can't take anything away. All right. They can't say, oh, I know the federal gives you a right against unreasonable search and seizure, but we don't. Okay? They can give you more, they can't give you less. All right, that's two areas of law. The third area of law is statutory law. Statutory law are written laws that establish certain courses of conduct that the covered parties must adhere to. Okay? Written laws that establish certain courses of conduct that covered parties must adhere to. They are enacted by the legislative bodies. Okay? Statutory laws, state and federal legislature enact laws termed statutes. All right? So your federal government and your state Congress, they enact laws. Those are termed statutes. But your cities and your counties also have a right to enact laws. Those are termed ordinances. Okay? So there's two tiers. Federal, state, those are statutes. City and counties, those are termed ordinances. Just be aware of two different things. A law is only valid in the area governed by that entity. All right? So if it's a federal law, it governs the whole United States. If it's a state law, it just governs that state. If it's a city ordinance, it just covers that city. Okay? So law is only valid in the area governed by that entity. Statutory law covers a lot of subject matters not covered under the Constitution or common law, such as the criminal code, housing, zoning, those kind of things. All right. Beware of the doctrine of supremacy. When jurisdictions overlap and a conflict may arise, federal law always prevails over state law. Okay, so if there's a federal law in conflict with the state law, federal law applies. State law, in turn, prevails over local law. So if there's a conflict between the two laws, state law will prevail over local law. And no statute can violate the U.S. Constitution. All right, so that's the doctrine of supremacy. Excuse me there for a minute. I had a phone call. The fourth area or source of law is administrative law. Okay? Administrative agencies are specialized bodies created by statute and are granted lawmaking authority to regulate certain activities. Okay? So there's certain agencies out there who are given by statute, by the legislature, the authority to regulate certain activities. Think about that for a second. What administrative agencies are out there? What agencies have certain authority over certain areas? Think about it. Anything come to mind? Administrative agencies, the National Labor Relations Board, the IRS, right? They are given by statute the right to tax you and the right to collect taxes and the right to punish you if you do not pay taxes. Okay? OSHA is another administrative law area. So these are governing bodies who are given certain authority by the legislature. The FDA, the FAA, the FCC, all of these are certain regulatory administrative bodies who have certain powers to regulate certain areas. Okay? All right, the next area, or the fifth source of law, are executive orders. This is a little bit less than the other four sources, but we're just we'll talk about it because there are certain laws derived from executive orders. All right, this power is implied from the Constitution. All right, and a good example is the Department of Homeland Security. All right, back after 9/11, the president implemented the Department of Homeland Security to protect us, to basically make sure we are safe at our homeland. All right, and this was done by executive order, and it was implied from the Constitution. The President Bush had the power to do it, to set up this department and to have this department work under him for our protection. All right. The last area of law are treaties, or last sources of law are treaties. All right. The U.S. Constitution provides that the president, with the advice and consent of the Senate, not necessarily the House of Representatives, but the Senate, may enter treaties with foreign governments. All right? Treaties. our agreements with foreign governments on how we're going to do business, how we're going to do commerce, how we are going to implement crimes, all that stuff. So the president can, with the advice and consent of the Senate, enter into treaties with foreign governments. And these have an effect on you, especially if you travel overseas, especially if you deal business-wise with foreign corporations, that kind of stuff. All right? Those are your 6 sources of law. So if I ask you on the quiz, name 4, please name 4. Know that there's, your common law, your constitutional law, your statutory law, your administrative bodies, your executive orders, and your treaties. Okay? Last thing I posted, and I want you to read, is how to brief a case. Because I'll be asking you throughout the summer or throughout the semester to brief cases and submit them. And the cases should be about page in length. You don't need to get crazy on them. You don't need to be 7 pages. Maybe 2/3, 3/4 to a page at length total. All right, but you just realize that the plaintiff is the person who brings the lawsuit. And that plaintiff could be anybody. It could be a human being, it could be a business, it could be a government, it could be a school, it could be LIM, that kind of thing. They are the body that brings the lawsuit. The defendant is the party against whom the lawsuit is brought. Okay? So plaintiff sues, defendant defends. Some of the cases, though, will be appellate cases, so just be aware. The petitioner or the appellant is the party who brings the appeal. That can either be the plaintiff or defendant. And the respondent or the appellee is the person who defends against the appeal. All right, just, if you have any questions, email me, call me. But, just remember, the plaintiff brings the case, the defendant defends the case. If they need to appeal it because they're not happy with the lower court's decision, the person who brings the appeal is known as the petitioner or the appellant. And that could be the plaintiff or defendant, whoever loses. And the person who has to answer the appeal is the respondent or the appellee. Okay? How to brief a case, there's the documents on both the syllabus and that I posted. But, some basic stuff, put the case caption, summary of the key facts, just real brief what the key facts are. I don't need to hear about the whole case. What the legal issues are, how the court made its determination, and the reasoning behind it. Okay? Should you have any questions, comments, please feel free to give me a call. Email me, whatever you need to do, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.